You think that jacket makes you tough? You don't belong here, old man. Get out!
The diner sat on the edge of a forgotten stretch of Highway 14, the sort of road where the desert wind blew dust across the asphalt like shifting memories. Folks called it Annie's place, though Annie herself had passed 2 winters earlier. Still, the neon sign flickered her name every evening, buzzing softly above the gravel parking lot. On a late October afternoon, the sun hung low and fierce, casting a golden scorch over everything. Inside, the diner smelled like bacon grease, stale coffee, and the comfort of a place that had survived more years than it probably deserved to. Vinyl booths creaked when anyone shifted their weight, and the chrome napkin dispensers caught little slices of sunlight that slipped through the blinds. At the corner booth, leaning over a plate of fries he wasn't really eating, sat Eli Turner. 38 years old, 6'2", built like a man who'd carried more weight than his own across miles he'd never speak of. His flannel shirt was worn at the elbows, his jeans faded, boots dusty. His eyes, calm, steady, storm gray, watched his 8-year-old daughter, Maddie, drumming her heels quietly beneath the table as she colored a paper placemat. "Daddy, look," she said, showing him a crooked purple horse with yellow wings. He smiled the soft smile he saved only for her. "That's majestic as all get out. Think she can fly?" Maddie nodded earnestly. "She can fly anywhere, even over oceans." "Over oceans, huh?" he said, pretending to ponder it. "Then she's got more guts than most folks." She giggled, scooting closer to him, a milkshake mustache drawn across her upper lip. He wiped it with a napkin, his hand gentle, gentler than anyone might ever imagine if they'd seen him 10 years ago, stepping off a blacked-out helicopter with a rucksack heavier than his future. Most people who walked past Eli saw only a quiet single dad, some weathered guy who probably worked construction or maintenance. A man who kept to himself, who had the steady patience of someone who'd lived enough life to know what mattered and what didn't. They didn't see the ghost of who he'd been, the operator who'd run missions deep behind lines never acknowledged, whose body still bore the marks of decisions made in the dark. They especially didn't see the tattoo. On his right forearm, just below where his shirt sleeve rolled up, a small, almost crude black symbol rested, two intersecting triangles with a line threading through, simple but unmistakable to anyone who knew its meaning. A symbol whispered across bases, never officially recognized. A mark worn by Delta Force operators who'd served in Blackthorn, one of the most covert units within an already covert world. It wasn't a bragging mark, it was a remembrance one. Most civilians didn't recognize it, most soldiers didn't either. But to the ones who did, it meant, don't pick a fight with this man, ever. And that was precisely the warning today's troublemaker did not know. The bell above the door jangled with a violent clang. A burst of cold wind swept in, and with it came a broad-shouldered guy in his mid-20s, barrel-chested, red-faced, wearing a backward cap and a t-shirt stretched too tight across his arms. Behind him drifted two friends, laughing loudly at nothing in particular. Their voices crashed into the diner like unwanted thunder. Eli didn't look up. He didn't have to. He could feel energy shift the same way he could feel a helicopter's pitch change by vibration alone. The young guy strutted in with the blunt confidence of someone who'd never lost a fight, or, more importantly, never had to pay a real price for starting one. "Dude, I'm starving," the bully announced to the entire diner, as if his hunger were breaking news. "I swear if they take as long as last time, I'll flip a table." His friends cackled. Maddie looked up at her dad with wide eyes. "They're loud." "Yeah, they are," Eli said softly. "Just keep coloring, sweetheart." At the counter, Jean, the 60-year-old waitress who'd worked every shift possible since the Reagan era, forced a polite smile. She had the energy of someone who'd seen enough teenage bravado in her life to write a library of books about it. But today, her gray curls trembled a bit as the trio swaggered over. Eli listened without appearing to. The bully snapped his gum, slapped the counter, barked for menus, mouthed off about service, made a crude joke about Jean's speed that made Maddie frown. "Why's he being mean?" she whispered. "Sometimes people act tough when they're scared on the inside," Eli answered, lifting his coffee cup. "Or just plain foolish." "Does being foolish make you loud?" A chuckle escaped him. "Often." The bully leaned across the counter, far into Jean's personal space. "I said 2 bacon cheeseburgers and fries, not rocket science, Granny." Jean stiffened. "I heard you the first time." "Well, then move." That was when Eli's eyes finally lifted, slow and cold and silent as a rising tea. "Duh." The bully didn't notice, not yet. Maddie tugged her dad's sleeve. "Can we go home?" "We will," he said, "soon." But fate had its own timing. As Jean turned to place the order, the bully noticed Maddie's gaze on him, her innocent confusion mistaken by him as challenge. "The hell you looking at, kid?" he sneered. Eli's jaw tightened fractionally. Maddie shrank back. I wasn't." The bully stepped toward their booth, cracking his knuckles. "Kids these days, no manners. Someone ought to teach you." "Back off." Eli said it calmly, without inflection, without raising his voice, just a simple instruction. The bully stopped mid-stride, blinking at him. "Excuse me." "You heard me." Eli didn't move an inch. His voice stayed even. "You don't talk to my daughter." The bully scoffed, turning to his friends as if for confirmation. "This guy's serious." His friends snorted. "Looks like it." Eli reached into his jacket, not for a weapon but for his wallet. He placed a 20 on the table. "We're done here, sweetheart," he told Maddie. "Grab your things." But Maddie hesitated. She clutched her coloring sheet and her crayons like a small shield, staring at the bully, maybe sensing something childish and stubborn and unjust in the moment. Maybe she'd inherited more of her father's spirit than Eli ever intended. "You got a problem?" the bully demanded, stepping closer. Eli rose slowly. He didn't rise like a man preparing to fight. He rose like a tide, inevitable, controlled, unstoppable. His full height blocked the light behind him, and something in the air grew heavier. At this distance, the bully finally saw the tattoo on Eli's forearm. He didn't recognize it, of course he didn't, but he noticed it. And he noticed that Eli wasn't built like some random highway traveler. He had the posture of someone who carried calm like a concealed weapon. Still, the bully had an audience. Backing down wasn't an option, not with his buddies watching. "Yeah, I see you're tough guy Inc., the bully sneered. "Doesn't scare me." Maddie slipped out of the booth, holding Eli's hand. "Daddy." "It's all right," he squeezed gently. "We're just leaving." And they might have, too, if the bully had let go. But insecurity makes fools bold, and the fear of looking weak in front of friends can turn stupidity into violence. "Hey," the bully shouted, and before anyone in the diner could fully process it, he reached out and slapped Eli across the face. The crack echoed like a snapped bone. Jean gasped, someone muttered, "Holy hell." Maddie yelped and grabbed Eli's leg. The bully stepped back with a grin. "You gonna walk away now, hero?" For a moment, Eli didn't react at all. Not outwardly. Inside him, something old and dark shifted, like a door creaking open in a long-abandoned hallway. Not rage, not even humiliation, more like an instinct that had kept him alive through things no man should have survived. An instinct he'd buried deep for Maddie's sake. He slowly turned his head back toward the bully. The sunlight through the blinds carved harsh lines across his expression. He didn't raise his fists. He didn't step forward. He simply stared, silent, centered, unblinking. The bully's smirk faltered. "What, you gonna cry or something? Say something, man." Eli's voice came quiet, low, and so steady it chilled the air around them. "Son," he said, "you just made the worst mistake of your life." That was all. No theatrics. No threats. Just truth. The bully's friends shifted uneasily. Something in Eli's tone had cut through whatever bravado they'd strutted in with. The diner felt smaller, like all the oxygen had been sucked out. But before anything else could unfold, before instinct or anger or discipline could take command, a new voice rose from the corner. "Everything all right over here?" asked Sheriff Ron Haskins, who just stepped in for his usual coffee. Sheriff Haskins was built like an oak tree and looked like he'd been carved from the same material. His uniform stretched across a belly earned through years of diner pie, but his hands rested easily on his belt, hands that knew real work. His eyes took in the scene quickly. Bully, stunned customers, Maddie clutching her dad, and Eli, eerily calm with a fresh red mark across his cheek. Haskins knew Eli not well, but enough. Eli had moved to town 2 years ago, quietly, respectfully, never caused trouble, helped change a flat tire for a stranger on Route 10, donated Maddie's old toys to the church preschool, worked odd jobs without complaining, never raised his voice. The sheriff had never once seen the man angry. Now he saw something else, a cold stillness he recognized in other veterans, the ones who'd seen combat up close and still lived with it like a shadow. "Ron," Eli said simply, "we're good." The bully scoffed. "He started it." Sheriff Haskins raised a brow. "That's so, because from where I stand, looks like you slapped a man holding his kid's hand." The bull Y opened his mouth, but his excuses died under the sheriff's stare. "Sit down," Haskins ordered him. "And you too," he nodded at the friends, "park it." They obeyed with slumped shoulders. Haskins turned to Eli. "You wanna press charges?" Eli shook his head. "No, just want to take my daughter home." Haskins gave a slow, knowing nod. "All right then." Maddie looked up at Eli, still tense. "Are we safe, Daddy?" His expression softened. "Yeah, baby, we're safe." But Eli knew the truth. This wasn't over. Not because he feared the bully, but because the way the young man's pride had cracked told Eli something dangerous. Some men react to embarrassment with an apology. Others stew in it until it festers. As he guided Maddie out of the diner, the air felt too still. Behind him, the bully glared, a slow-burning promise forming in his eyes. Eli didn't see it. He didn't have to. He felt it. And for the first time in years, the instinct he lived by began whispering again. "Be ready." Outside, the wind picked up, cold and sharp, as Eli lifted Maddie into their truck. He paused, hand on the door, staring at the distant stretch of mountains turning purple in the dusk. Trouble had found him. The kind that never stayed small. The kind that forced old doors open. The kind he never wanted Maddie to see. He took a slow breath, steadying himself. The tattoo on his forearm caught the dying light, its edges dark and sharp. A mark of a Delta Force legend. That bully should never have touched. And soon, very soon, he would learn exactly why. Eli started the engine. The storm had begun. The road home unwound beneath Eli's truck in long, empty stretches, the tires humming a steady rhythm that usually soothed him. Not tonight. Tonight the highway felt too quiet, too open, like the desert itself was holding its breath. Maddie sat belted in the backseat, curled up with her stuffed rabbit, Charlie watching shadows slip past the window. "Daddy," she murmured. "Yeah, sweetheart." "Why did that man hit you?" Eli tightened his grip on the steering wheel, the question slicing him deeper than the slap had. "Some folks don't think before they act," he said evenly, "and they get themselves into trouble because of it." "Did he hurt you?" He glanced at her in the rearview mirror, forcing a small smile. Not even a little. But Maddie didn't look convinced. Her eyes drifted to his cheek, still red, still swelling slightly. She reached into her school backpack, pulled out a sticker from a pack she'd won for best effort in class that week. It was a sparkly green star. "Here," she whispered, leaning forward to stick it just above his heart. "So you feel better." Eli swallowed, warmth rising into his chest. "I do feel better," he said softly. "Thank you." The simple innocence of her gesture cut through the gnawing tension, though not enough to silence it completely. As they approached the outskirts of town, Eli spotted a familiar brown truck parked beside the sheriff's substation. Sheriff Haskins stood outside with a cup of coffee, steam rising around his weathered face. The sheriff raised a hand when he saw Eli's truck coming. Eli sighed. He wasn't in the mood for conversation, but he also knew the sheriff didn't stop folks without a reason. So he pulled in. Haskins leaned down to Maddie's window first, tipping his hat. "Hey there, sunshine." "Hi, Sheriff Ron," she said, still subdued. He straightened and came around to Eli's side. "Just checking on you," Haskins said quietly. "You left in a hurry." "We were fine," Eli replied. "Yeah," Haskins said, studying him. "I know you were." Something unspoken passed between them. The sheriff lowered his voice. "I'm guessing guys like that kid don't know who they're messing with." Eli kept his gaze steady. "Doesn't matter who I used to be, I'm a dad first." Haskins grunted. "Good philosophy, but that kid looked like the type to hold a grudge. You want me to keep an eye on him? Maybe talk him down a notch?" Eli shook his head. "Let him cool off, he'll move on." Haskins didn't look convinced, but he didn't push. "All right, but you call me if he comes within 10 feet of your girl." "I will," Eli said. He wouldn't, but it eased the sheriff's mind. With a final nod, Haskins backed away, letting Eli pull out and head toward the ranch-style house they'd been renting for the past year. The place had a sagging porch and shutters that needed paint, but the backyard opened onto miles of scrubland, wide enough that at night the sky felt endless. Eli had chosen it for that reason alone. Something about the open horizon helped him breathe. As he parked, Maddie pointed at the porch. "Looks like Mrs. Carter left cookies." Sure enough, a small container sat by the door, wrapped in a checkered cloth. Their elderly neighbor had taken a liking to Maddie and brought treats more often than her doctor would approve. Inside, Eli helped Maddie change into pajamas while the night settled. Outside, she brushed her teeth in her little fish-themed bathroom, humming to herself again, her spirits slowly regaining buoyancy. But when Eli tucked her into bed, she looked up at him, voice a bit unsure. "Dad, that man won't come here, right?" He smoothed her hair back. "No, baby, he won't come here." "But you looked worried." Eli took a breath. Kids saw more than adults ever gave them credit for. "I'm not worried about him," he said truthfully. "I'm thinking, that's all." "Thinking about what?" He hesitated. "About how to keep you safe, always." "Like a superhero." He smiled faintly, something like that. That satisfied her enough. She snuggled Charlie under her chin and closed her eyes. "Good night, Daddy." "Good night, Angel." When the door clicked shut, Eli leaned back against the wall, letting out a long, slow breath. He wasn't lying when he told Haskins that it didn't matter who he used to be. He'd buried that man on purpose. Buried him because Maddie deserved a father who lived in daylight, not shadows. A father who made pancakes on Saturdays, who took her fishing on the weekends, who braided her hair, poorly, before school. Not a man who could dismantle another human being in seconds. Not a man built for violence. He walked into the kitchen, grabbed a bag of frozen peas, pressed it to his cheek. The sting was mild. Slaps weren't dangerous, but they were humiliating, and humiliation had a way of sticking to the people who couldn't handle it. He'd seen men burn down villages over wounded pride. He'd seen entire missions turn lethal because a single person couldn't stomach being disrespected. He couldn't shake the look in that bully's eyes, the resentment, the growing sense of challenge. Eli had stepped away from violence, but violence never fully stepped away from men like him. The next morning dawned clear and cold. Maddie went to school wearing a unicorn hoodie and mismatched socks, her personal fashion rebellion. Eli walked her to the gates, earning a hug so fierce it stayed with him all day. He spent the morning fixing fences on Mr. Maynard's property, a job that didn't pay much but kept his hands busy. The sky stretched endless and bright above him, the smell of hay and dust mixing with autumn air. But by noon, he noticed a truck slow down on the road nearby. A black pickup. Windows tinted. Engine rumbling with that low, throaty growl that young men customized when they wanted to announce themselves. The same truck the bully had driven to the diner. Eli watched it crawl by. It didn't stop. Just slowed. As if taking inventory. As if confirming something. Eli's jaw clenched. "You're being paranoid," he told himself. "He's just driving." But the instinct twisting in his gut disagreed. By late afternoon, Eli pulled into the school parking lot to pick up Maddie. She came running, backpack bouncing, her smile bright, until she froze. A young man leaned against a motorcycle near the far end of the lot, arms crossed, eyes fixed on them. Not the bully. One of his friends. The leaner one with the stringy blonde hair. He smirked when he saw Eli notice him. Eli didn't change pace, didn't show tension, just opened the truck door for Maddie and helped her climb in. The friend tipped an invisible hat. Eli shut the door. Drove away. Didn't breathe until they were off school grounds. That evening he cooked spaghetti while Maddie sat at the table doing math homework. She hummed as she scribbled numbers. Everything felt normal again. Normal, except for the way Eli's eyes kept drifting to the window every few minutes. At dusk, when he stepped outside to toss trash, He saw tire tracks in the gravel that hadn't been there an hour earlier. Someone had driven up and left. He crouched, studying the pattern. Not the sheriff S. Not the mail carrier S. Too wide for Mrs. Carter's old Ford. His teeth clenched. The desert quiet pressed in on him. That night after Maddie fell asleep, Eli sat alone on the porch, rifle across his lap, not loaded, not even chambered, but present. A symbol, a reminder, a friend he hoped he wouldn't need. He'd fought entire teams of armed insurgents in pitch-black mountain passes. He'd navigated hostile villages where every window could be a barrel. He'd rappelled into compounds that smelled like death hours before sunrise. But nothing compared to the fear of threats near home. Threats near his daughter. He stayed awake until the moon lifted high. And that's when he saw the headlights. A pair of them, cresting the hills slowly, careful not to bounce too much. They approached his property line. Then stopped. Not close enough to confront him, but close enough that he could feel the stare from whoever sat in that cab. Eli rose from the porch. He didn't raise the rifle. He didn't shout. He simply stood, a tall silhouette in the moonlight, silent, immovable. The truck lingered, watching, then peeled away, gravel spitting beneath its tur. Ease. Eli exhaled slow. It was beginning. The next day at the diner, Sheriff Haskins called him aside. "Kid you ran into the other day?" the sheriff asked. "Name S. Tyler Briggs. Dad runs Briggs Construction. Family got money, got lawyers, got a reputation for thinking they're untouchable." Eli nodded once. He knew the type. "I talked to him," Haskins continued. "Kid fed me a story about how you threatened him first." Eli raised an eyebrow. "Did you believe him?" "I ain't stupid," Haskins muttered. "But his daddy believes him, and daddy's already talking about filing a complaint if anything else happens." "Nothing happened," Eli reminded him. "Yeah, well," Haskins scratched his jaw, "Tyler's been running his mouth around town, saying he's gonna deal with you. That true?" Eli looked the sheriff dead in the eyes. "I haven't touched him." "I know," Haskins said. Then he leaned forward, tone dropping. "But somebody like him, entitled, insecure, looking to prove something, he's gonna push until he gets what he wants." "What he wants," Eli said quietly, "is a reaction." "Yeah," Haskins whispered, "and you're a man who's real good at reacting." Eli remained silent. Haskins lowered his voice even further. "Look, I've never asked, but you served right." Eli nodded once. "Special Forces." Another nod. Haskins exhaled. "Thought so." The sheriff's gaze drifted to the tattoo on Eli's arm. He didn't recognize it, not fully, but he recognized enough. "I'll keep an eye out," he said, "but you need to tell me if anything crosses a line." Eli simply said, "I will handle it." Those 4 words unsettled the sheriff more than any threat could have. By late afternoon, Eli and Maddie stopped by the grocery store for dinner supplies. She insisted on getting marshmallows for hot cocoa season, even though it's not winter yet, she argued. As they walked down the cereal aisle, Eli sensed it before he saw it. Presence. Movement. A shadow turning the corner too slowly. A breath held too long. Then Tyler stepped into view, blocking the end of the aisle. He wasn't smiling this time. His lip curled when he saw Maddie. "Well, well," he said, "look who's shopping like nothing happened." Eli immediately stepped in front of his daughter. "Walk away," Eli said evenly. "I'm with my kid." Tyler scoffed. "Or what? You'll stare at me again? You think you scared me in that diner?" "Tyler," Eli said calmly, "don't do this here." "Oh, I'm gonna do this anywhere I want." People were watching now, some pretending not to, some frozen. Tyler stepped closer. "Hit me," he taunted. "Come on, do it in front of all these people." Eli could feel Maddie shaking behind him. His voice went low, cold. "You need to leave my daughter out of this." She looked at me funny, Tyler snapped. Maybe she needs to learn respect too. Maddie whimpered, and for the first time in a very long time, Eli's control slipped. Not his temper, his calculation, his assessment, his ability to pretend he wasn't what he truly was. But before anything could crack open, a store manager hurried over, waving his hands. Guys, let's take this outside or call the police. Tyler's eyes flickered. Humiliation again. He backed away, muttering, "This isn't over, old man." Eli didn't respond, just placed a hand on Maddie's shoulder. She stared up at him, eyes glassy. "Daddy, I'm scared." He crouched down, pulling her close. "It's okay, I've got you." But as he held her, he could feel it building. Pressure, heat, instinct rumbling awake like a sleeping giant. This was no longer a random bully encounter. This was targeted, escalating, and dangerous. Tyler wasn't just puffing his chest anymore. He was circling, testing, waiting for a moment when the world wasn't watching. Eli had seen men like him before. Men who didn't know the laws of real violence. Men who didn't understand that if they pushed the wrong warrior into a corner, they might not walk away. As Eli drove home, Maddie quiet in the backseat, he stared out at the wide desert horizon. He didn't want this fight. But the fight was coming. And somewhere deep inside, the part of him that had once worn the black thorn mark began to rise. Hungry, focused, ready. He clenched the steering wheel. The storm wasn't coming anymore. It was here, and someone was going to get hurt. Preferably not his daughter. Preferably not him. But if Tyler pushed any further, Eli Turner, the Delta Force legend he had tried so hard to bury, was going to reawaken. And when that happened, there would be no undoing it. The wind picked up that night, rattling the loose gutter above Eli's porch and dragging dry leaves across the steps in soft, scraping whispers. The sky stretched clear and sharp, a million stars staring down like witnesses. Inside the house, the only light burned low in the living room, where Maddie lay on the couch, cocooned in a blanket, watching a cartoon she pretended not to be falling asleep too. Eli sat in the armchair nearby, not watching the TV at all. His phone lay in his palm, the screen dim, a single contact open but unsent. Cal Doc Ramirez. Cal had been their medic back in the teams. A wisecracker with fast hands and a soft heart, the kind of guy who'd drag you through hell and then make fun of your haircut while patching you up. The last time they'd spoken was a year ago, on the anniversary of a mission they no longer talked about explicitly. His thumb hovered over the call button. Reaching out felt like stepping backward into a world he'd left behind. But he wasn't thinking about himself. He was thinking about Tyler Briggs, about the way the kid's eyes had gleamed with something more than anger in that grocery store, something like obsession, about the black truck slowing outside his property, about headlights stopping at the edge of his land in the middle of the night. He thought about Maddie's little voice. "Daddy, I'm scared." He hit call. The line rang once, twice. "Turner," Cal's voice came through, rough with surprise and distance. "Well, damn, I thought you finally changed your number and ran off to Alaska." "Hey, Doc. Don't tell me you're calling just to hear my smooth voice. Last time I heard from you, you swore you were living the quiet life." "I was," Eli said, "mostly still am." Mostly is doing a lot of heavy lifting there, brother." Silence stretched for a second. "You in trouble?" Cal asked, tone shifting. The old operator instincts flicked on in his voice. Eli exhaled. "Not yet, but I got a situation." He described it in short, clipped lines. The diner, the slap, the threats, the truck at the property line, the grocery store run-in. He didn't dramatize. He didn't exaggerate. He delivered it like a mission brief. On the other end, Cal went quiet. Kid slapped you in front of your daughter, Cal said finally. Then he starts circling your house. Yeah. Jesus, Cal muttered, and you haven't reacted. I've done everything I can not to. Cal snorted softly. Always figured if something got you back into old mode, it wouldn't be terrorists or mercs. It'd be some idiot with more ego than sense. This isn't about my ego, Eli said. It's about her. I can't let this touch her. Cal sighed. Nah, man, I know, I get it. A pause. So what do you want from me, Eli? He asked. You want advice, backup. I can be on a plane in the morning. Eli almost smiled. You got a wife and 2 kids, Doc. You're not flying out to smack around some rich kid in a small town. Cal grumbled. Yeah, well, I'd still do it. I know. Another quiet beat. Okay, Cal said, shifting into that calm, clinical tone he used when patching bullet wounds. Listen, first thing, this kid's escalating because he doesn't think there's a line he can't cross. People like that don't stop until something bigger than them hits back. Law, consequences, or fear. You tried law. You tried ignoring. You tried walking away. I know, Eli said. You know what happens next. Eli didn't respond. He didn't have to. You still got the skills, Cal said. I know you do, but you got something else now, too, a daughter watching. Whatever you do, don't let her see you go full you. He whispered the last word like it held weight. She won't, Eli murmured. I'll die first. Don't talk like that. A softer silence settled. Listen, Cal said. You remember Captain Price from Fort Bragg? Yeah. He used to say, we're not dangerous because we're violent. We're dangerous because we know when not to be. You hear me? I hear you. Last thing, Cal said. If this kid finds out what that tattoo on your arm really means, he's either gonna run or he's gonna push harder to prove it doesn't scare him. There's no in-between with guys like that. I'm hoping for the first option, Eli replied. Yeah, Cal said. Me too, but I know your luck. They shared a short, grim laugh. Call me if it goes bad, Cal said. Even if it's 3 in the morning, especially if it's 3 in the morning. Thanks, Doc. Take care of that little girl, brother. Always. Eli hung up. The cartoon credits rolled on the TV. Maddie was asleep, mouth slightly open, one hand still resting on Charlie's floppy ear. He watched her for a long time. Whatever happens, she doesn't see it. He gently scooped her up and carried her to bed, tucking her beneath the blankets. She stirred but didn't wake, just mumbled something about unicorns and marshmallows. He kissed her forehead, lingered a second longer than usual, then stepped out. Down the road, at a bar that smelled like stale beer and bad decisions, Tyler Briggs slammed back another shot. Dude, you're wasted, his friend Mark muttered, dragging a hand over his face. I'm good, Tyler slurred, though his eyes flashed sharp beneath the haze. You see the way that freak looked at me in the store, like he's above. Me like I'm some punk. You are some punk, the other friend, Riley said with a half-hearted laugh. No offense. Tyler scowled. He made me look like a coward in front of everyone, in front of his kid. Riley shrugged. So drop it, it's done. Tyler's jaw flexed. He thinks he can stare me down, walk away. Nah, I'm gonna make him regret that. At the end of the bar, a man in his 50s nursed a beer, listening. He wore an old army cap, faded and sweat-stained, the brim pulled low over eyes that had seen too much. His name was Walt Jenkins, though most people just called him Walt and left it at that. Hey, Walt called slowly, turning his bar stool halfway. You talking about that tall guy out by the edge of town? Drives a beat-up blue truck, got a little girl with big eyes. Tyler snorted. Yeah, you know him. Not really, Walt said. Seen him around, bought me a coffee once when I lost my wallet. Saw him at the VFW when we had that charity drive. He didn't stay long, donated a wad of cash, left before they could make a fuss. Tyler rolled his eyes. Oh yeah, real saint. Walt's gaze dropped to the bar. You ever see his arm? Tyler frowned. What about it? He got a tattoo, Walt asked. Right forearm, 2 triangles crossed, line through M. Tyler paused, Riley nodded. Yeah, I think so, looked stupid, like a broken geometry problem. Walt's shoulders stiffened. You messing with that guy? He asked quietly. Tyler puffed up. Yeah, so what? Old dude needed to be put in his place, slapped him in the diner last week. Man just stood there like a coward. The bar went a little quieter. Walt lifted his beer, swallowed, then set it down with care. He turned fully now, studying Tyler like he'd just admitted to poking a sleeping bear. You're an idiot, Walt said. Tyler bristled. Excuse me. You heard me? Walt's voice was calm, but some old steel slid into it. That tattoo, I seen it once before in Afghanistan. Guy wearing it didn't talk much, didn't have to. Folks like him ain't part of the regular show. Riley shifted uneasily. What are you saying? I'm saying, Walt replied, that mark ain't for decoration. That's a Delta unit patch, one of the ghost outfits, Black Thorn or something like it. They don't talk about it, but they all got some version of that ink. He leaned forward, eyes burning into Tyler, S. You slapped a Tier 1 operator, kid, in front of his daughter, and he let you walk away. Tyler's smirk faltered. That's bull, he's just some mechanic or something. Walt shook his head slowly. You know why guys like that scare me more than a squad of insurgents? 'Cause they know exactly what they're capable of and they choose not to show it. They got restraint built into their bones. But you want to see what happens when you push past that line? He jabbed a finger at Tyler. Keep pushing him, see what happens. A slow, uneasy chill slid over Riley's face. Maybe we should drop this, Ty. Tyler's cheeks flushed, booze and humiliation mixing into something dangerous. Being told he was outmatched scraped across his ego like sandpaper. So what? Tyler snapped. I'm supposed to be scared 'cause some old drunk says he saw a tattoo once. I ain't drunk, Walt said, his jaw tightening. And I ain't lying. Tyler laughed bitterly. He's not a ghost, he's just a man, bleeds like anyone else. Riley tugged at his sleeve. Come on, man, let's just go home. Tyler yanked his arm away. No, I'm ending this tonight. He wants to act like he's untouchable. I'll show him. Walt stared at him for a long, heavy beat. You go out to that man's place with bad intentions, Walt said quietly. You're not coming back the same, if you come back at all. Tyler grabbed his keys, eyes burning. Watch me. The desert was bone cold by the time the black truck rolled down the dirt road leading to Eli's house, headlights off. Gravel crunched under tires. The engine hummed low. Inside, Eli sat in the dark living room, TV off, rifle leaning against the wall beside him, pistol holstered under his flannel. He hadn't gone to bed, hadn't tried. Every nerve felt awake. He didn't see the truck at first. He heard it. A faint rumble beneath the ordinary night sounds. A vibration through the floorboards. The instinct that had kept him alive overseas whispered again, they're here. He rose, moving silently through the house. First stop, Maddie's room. She slept deeply, sprawled sideways with Charlie clutched to her chest and one foot sticking out of the blankets. The soft nightlight painted her face in warm gold. Stay sleeping, baby, he murmured under his breath. Stay sleeping. He closed her door gently until it was just cracked, then locked the back door, checked the windows, moved like he was back in a hostile village, clearing rooms, establishing choke points, mapping angles. Outside, 3 figures stepped out of the black truck. Tyler, Riley, and Mark. They wore hoodies and cheap masks they'd bought from a Halloween clearance bin. Tyler carried a metal bat. Riley held a crowbar. Mark didn't hold anything, hands shoved deep in his pockets, body tense with second thoughts. This is stupid, Mark hissed. Ty, come on, let's just key his truck or something and go. Tyler shook his head. He disrespected me. He thinks I'm scared 'cause some old vet told a campfire story. Nah, I'm gonna scare him, teach him where he belongs. Where he belongs, Riley whispered. He's just some guy with a kid, man. He's a coward hiding behind his kid, Tyler snapped. Tonight I show him what happens when you mess with me. He stalked toward the house. Eli watched from the shadow beside the front window, heart low and steady. Not fast, not panicked, focused. He considered his options in seconds. He could call the sheriff, but Haskins was 20 minutes out on a good night. He could wait for them to try breaking in and defend himself inside, but that meant noise, chaos, Maddie waking up into a nightmare. Or he could do what he'd been trained his entire adult life to do. Control the battlefield. He slipped out the side door, moving low, footsteps soundless in the dirt. The moon was bright enough to see their silhouettes creeping toward the front porch, but the shadows near the side of the house were deep. He flanked them easily. Tyler took the first step onto the porch, lifting the bat, ready to pound on the door. "Don't do that." The voice came from the dark behind them, calm and close. All three spun around. There he was. Eli stood a few yards away, no rifle in his hands, no weapon visible, just his height, his presence, his eyes, cold and clear in the moonlight. The tattoo on his forearm was almost black in the night. Tyler froze. For a second, a flicker of what Walt had said returned to him, a tremor under his skin, but pride shoved fear aside. "You trying to scare me?" Tyler barked, lifting the bat. "You think standing in the dark makes you special?" "I'm giving you one chance to leave," Eli said. "Right now, nobody gets hurt if you turn around and drive away." Riley swallowed hard. "Ty, let's go." "We came this far," Tyler snapped, pointing the bat at Eli. "You ain't giving me orders. You hear about what your little mark means. Think that scares me? Delta, black, whatever, I don't care." His voice rose, cracking. "You bled just like anyone else when I slapped you." Eli's jaw tightened. "I let you hit me because my daughter was watching." "Oh, that's sweet," Tyler mocked. "Maybe she should watch this too, learn what a real man looks like." Eli's eyes went flat. "Careful, son," he said quietly. "You're talking about my little girl." "Yeah," Tyler sneered. "What's her name again, Maddie? Cute kid. Would be a shame if she—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't get the chance. Eli moved. It wasn't a charge or a wild swing. It was a precise, controlled explosion of motion honed by years of training. 1 second he stood several steps away. The next his hand snapped forward, locking onto the bat, twisting. Tyler yelped as his wrist folded in on itself the wrong way. The bat clattered to the dirt. "What the—" Before Tyler could process it, Eli stepped in, shoulder into his chest, using his momentum to slam him back against the porch rail. The breath blasted out of Tyler in a harsh grunt. Riley jerked forward, raising the crowbar. "Don't," Eli said without turning, voice like steel. Riley stopped. He didn't know how he knew, but he did. If he took one more step, he was going to wake up in a hospital, or not at all. Mark stumbled backward, hands up. We weren't gonna." Eli pinned Tyler with his forearm, not crushing his throat, just limiting his air enough to make his eyes bulge, enough to make him understand his position. "You came to my home," Eli said, low and lethal, "where my daughter sleeps." Tyler wheezed. You think you're—" Eli's other hand swung up, grabbing Tyler's hoodie, yanking it down to expose his neck. The kid's pulse throbbed under Eli's thumb. "You want to know what this tattoo means?" Eli asked, lifting his forearm where the black mark gleamed in the moonlight. "Means I've done things you can't imagine. Means I've walked into places where everyone wanted me dead and walked back out. Means I've buried more friends than you've got brain cells." Tyler's bravado cracked. Something terrified flickered across his face. "You think slapping me in a diner makes you a man?" Eli's voice stayed controlled, but it vibrated with a power that made Riley and Mark tremble. "You want to prove something? You pick a fight with somebody who signed up for it, not a dad holding his kid." Eli slammed him slightly harder into the rail, just enough to make it creak. "You show up at my house again, you threaten my daughter again, you even say her name with that tone again," he said, voice dropping to a razor whisper. "I won't just defend myself. I will dismantle you, piece by piece, and there won't be a thing your daddy's money can do to save you." Tyler's breath hitched. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cold. You can't. Try me, Eli said. Lights flicked on in Mrs. Carter's house across the way. A curtain twitched. Somewhere a dog barked. Eli, a cautious voice called from inside his own house. Mrs. Carter must have phoned her. Everything okay out there? Eli didn't look back. Everything's fine, he called, tone suddenly gentle. Just handling some business. Tyler's knees buckled. Eli eased the pressure just enough to let him suck in air. Riley dropped the crowbar with a clatter. "We're sorry," he blurted. "We're sorry, okay? We didn't mean." "You didn't mean?" Eli snapped his gaze to him. "You're standing in my yard with a weapon, masked up in the middle of the night. You meant plenty." Mark was shaking outright now. "Dude, I told you this was stupid. Ty, man, say something. Tell him we're sorry." Tyler stared at Eli's tattoo like it was a loaded gun. Walt's words echoed in his head. "You go out to that man's place with bad intentions. You're not coming back the same." His voice came out small, strangled. "We're sorry. I was drunk. I was pissed. I'm sorry." Eli studied him for a long beat. His instincts screamed to do more. Finish it. End the threat. Make sure they never came near Maddie again. But Cal's voice slid through his head. "Whatever you do, don't let her see you go full you." And the truth flickered inside him. He wasn't that man anymore. Not completely. He lowered Tyler to his feet but kept a tight grip on his hoodie, bringing his face inches from the kids. "You think tonight is the worst thing that ever happened to you," Eli said softly. "It's not. The worst thing would have been if I were still the man I used to be." Tyler swallowed, shaking. "I'm giving you a gift," Eli went on. "A second chance. You walk away. You never come near me or my girl again. You apologize to Jean at the diner. You grow the hell up. Or next time." His eyes went colder than the night air. "I don't stop at scaring you." In the distance, sirens wailed, faint, growing closer. Mrs. Carter must have called the sheriff too, just in case. Eli released Tyler suddenly. The kid stumbled, collapsing into the dirt. Riley grabbed his arm, hauling him up. "Go," Eli said. They went, stumbling, scrambling, tripping over each other to reach the truck. Gravel sprayed as they peeled away, taillights streaking red against the night. Eli stood alone in the yard, chest rising and falling slowly, hands flexing at his sides as the adrenaline cooled. The sound of sirens grew louder, then cut as Sheriff Haskins' cruiser slid to a stop by the property. The sheriff stepped out, hand resting on his holster, eyes sweeping the scene. The abandoned bat and crowbar, the tire tracks gouged into the dirt, Eli standing rigid in the moonlight. "What happened?" Haskins asked, already guessing. "Briggs and his buddies," Eli said. "They came here masked, armed." "Jesus," Haskins breathed. "You all right?" "I'm fine. Maddie, she's asleep, didn't see anything." Relief flashed across the sheriff's face. "Good, that's good." Haskins crouched, poking at the dropped weapons with a pen, then straightened, looking at Eli carefully. "You hurt them?" he asked. "I could have," Eli replied. "I didn't." The sheriff searched his face, recognizing some battle in the man's eyes he'd never fully understand. "All right," Haskins said. "You want to file something this time? Because this crosses a line." Eli hesitated. He glanced toward the dark road where the truck had vanished. He thought about Tyler's face, scared, small, cracked open. He thought about Maddie upstairs, sleeping in her unicorn sheets. He thought about being 18 once, stupid and angry and sure the world owed him something, before the army had straightened him out and war had carved the rest. "I want it on record," Eli said finally, "that they came here, that they brought weapons, that they threatened my family." Haskins nodded, pulling out a small notepad. "And if Briggs says you attacked him?" Eli met his gaze steadily. "Then he'd better have fewer bruises than he deserved." The sheriff huffed a short half-laugh. "Fair enough." He scribbled notes, then closed the pad. "I'll talk to his old man," he said. "And the DA, there's laws that cover this, but I gotta say, Eli." He shook his head, looking around at the scene. "You handled yourself," Haskins said. Could have been a bloodbath, instead it's just a wake-up call for some idiots. It doesn't feel like just anything, Eli murmured. Maybe not now, Haskins said, but give it time. He studied him a moment longer. I knew you were something, the sheriff said. Didn't know you were that something. Eli didn't respond. Haskins nodded toward the house. Go check on your girl, I'll clean. Up out here, log this, and we'll make sure Briggs understands there's nowhere left for him to hide. Thanks, Ron. As he turned to go inside, Haskins called after him. Hey, Turner. Eli paused. For what it's worth, the sheriff said. If he had come at my kids, I don't think I'd have had half your restraint. Eli gave a small, tired nod and slipped back into the house. The quiet swallowed him. He moved up the hall, heart finally beating faster now that the danger had passed. He opened Maddie's door a crack. She was still asleep. He sagged against the frame for a moment, relief washing over him so hard his knees felt weak. Then, Daddy. Her sleepy voice floated through the dark. He stepped inside. Hey, baby, go back to sleep. Everything's okay. She sat up, rubbing her eyes. I heard talking and sirens. Just Sheriff Ron checking on us, that's all. She blinked. Did bad guys come? He crossed the room, sat on the edge of her bed. The nightlight glow painted her worried eyes. They tried, he said softly, but they went away. She studied his face carefully, little brows knit. Did they hurt you? He shook his head, not even close. Did you, she hesitated, searching for the words. Did you use your superhero side? His throat tightened. Maybe a little, he said. Did you keep us safe? He swallowed. Yeah, sweetheart, I kept us safe. She leaned forward, wrapping her arms around his neck. He hugged her back, holding on a little too long. Good, she whispered into his shoulder, 'cause that's what you're best at. He closed his eyes, feeling the weight of what he'd almost become again, and the weight of what he'd chosen instead. Down the road, a black truck sped through the night, 3 boys inside very, very quiet, one clutching his bruised throat, staring in terror at the memory of a small black tattoo and the man who wore it like a warning. For the first time in his life, Tyler Briggs understood. He'd picked a fight with a monster, and the only reason he was still alive was because that monster had chosen to be a father instead. The storm had broken, but the aftermath, the reckoning, was still coming. Morning came slow, like the town wasn't sure yet if it wanted to move forward. Sunlight crept over the desert, throwing long shadows across Eli's front yard where the scars of the night still showed. Scuffed dirt, faint shoe prints, the imprint of a bat that had struck nothing at all. Eli stood on the porch with a mug of coffee, watching the light wash over everything like a quiet promise. Inside, he could hear Maddie humming as she got ready for school. Not a nervous hum this time, just her usual off-key little tune. It gave him something solid to hold onto. He was tired down in his bones, what Cal had once called soul fatigue. But there was a strange clarity in him, too. A line he'd walked in the dark had brought him here, to morning, without crossing into the version of himself he feared most. The gravel in his driveway crunching pulled his attention up. A familiar sheriff's cruiser rolled to a stop. Sheriff Haskins climbed out, hat tipped low against the early light. He carried a folder in one hand, his expression somewhere between grim and relieved. "Mornin', Turner," he called. Eli nodded. "Ron's." The sheriff walked up onto the porch, joints popping. "You look like you slept as much as I did." "Didn't," Eli said. "Coffee's strong if you want some." "Don't tempt me," Haskins muttered. "Doctor's already on me about my blood pressure." He leaned against one of the porch posts, exhaled, and flipped open the folder. "All right," he said. "Here's how it shook out after I left last night." Eli just listened. "Found their truck," Haskins said. "Pulled M over 5 miles out, 3 boys in it. One with a nice bruised throat, one who looked like he'd never stop shaking, and one trying real hard to act like nothing bothered him." He gave Eli a look. You can guess which is which. Yeah. They had masks in the back seat. One glove with blood on it, dried, probably from a cut earlier, but it'll do. Bat and crowbar left at your place, like we saw, enough for probable cause on attempted breaking and entering with intent to intimidate. Maybe worse if I push it. Eli's face stayed neutral. What's the DA say? She's hot, Haskins said. Wanted to slap them with every charge in the book, especially when she heard about your little girl in the house. Judges don't like that. Nobody does. He glanced toward the front window, where a unicorn backpack sat waiting. Briggs' old man came storming into my office at 6 a.m., Haskins continued, yelling about boys being boys and how you must have provoked them. Dropped your name, your past, like it was some kind of proof you were the problem. He paused, and then Walt Jenkins showed up. Eli raised a brow. Walt. Yeah, Haskins said, lips twitching. Old Walt walked into my office with more backbone tea. And I've seen from him in years, said he'd been at the bar. Heard Tyler run his mouth, warned him, watched him leave drunk and angry. The sheriff shrugged. Between your statement, Walt's, the physical evidence, and the fact that Briggs' kid practically confessed by panicking when we pulled him over, DA's got enough to press real charges. Eli stared at the horizon for a long moment. Good, he said quietly. Haskins shifted his weight. I'm telling you all that because I want you to know this isn't getting swept under the rug. Money or no money, Tyler Briggs is in serious trouble. But, Eli prompted. But Haskins sighed. He's still 24 years old, still a dumb kid who thinks he's invincible. DA's pushing for felony charges. Briggs' daddy is begging for a deal. And you, the sheriff gave him a measuring look, have more say in how this lands than you might think. Eli frowned. How is that? DA wants to talk to you, Haskins said. Wants to know if you'll testify, push for the max, or accept a plea deal that includes mandatory counseling, probation, and one hell of a long community service list. Community service, Eli repeated, like picking up trash and posting apology videos. Haskins snorted. More like 6 months at the Veterans Outreach Center, helping vets build ramps, fix houses, donate lumber, swing hammers. DA got creative when Briggs' construction came up. Eli considered that. He deserves consequences, Haskins added. But I'll say this, I've seen boys go two ways after a scare like last night. Some get meaner, some wake up. What we do now might tip that scale. Eli took a sip of coffee, thinking. He thought about Tyler's eyes in the dirt. He thought about his own reflection at 18, full of anger and reckless energy before the army had stripped it down and rebuilt it. How long I got before I have to decide? Eli asked. DA wants an answer by tomorrow, Haskins said. Trial is a heavy weight for you, for Maddie, for everyone, but it also sends a strong message. Eli nodded slowly. All right, I'll think on it. The front door creaked open behind them. Sheriff Ron, Maddie chirped, stepping onto the porch with Charlie tucked under her arm and her backpack hanging crookedly off one shoulder. Haskins straightened, trying to look less like he'd been talking about serious things. Well, hey there, sunshine, you ready for school? Yep, she said. We're doing a science project. Mine's about volcanoes. Daddy says those are like mountains that got mad one day. Haskins chuckled. That sounds about right. She squinted at Eli's face. Did the bad guys come back? Eli shook his head. Nope, they're not coming back. Sheriff Ron made sure of that. She gave Haskins a solemn look that belonged on someone older. Thank you for keeping us safe. The sheriff's face softened. You tell your dad he's the one keeping you safe, he said. I'm just the backup. She turned to Eli. You're still my superhero, she announced. Haskins glanced at Eli, then stepped down off the porch. All right, I'll let you two get on with the day. Call me if anything breathes wrong around here. Will do, Eli said. The sheriff paused by his car, and Turner. Yeah. Haskins tipped his hat. You did good last night. There's a lot of ways that could have gone sideways. The fact that it did, that's on you. Eli didn't answer, but he nodded, just once. He drove Maddie to school, her chatter about volcanoes and recess, and who was bringing cupcakes this week filling the cab with ordinary life. Somewhere between stoplights, she got quiet. "Daddy," she asked, did you have to be scary last night?" He kept his eyes on the road. "A little bit." "Did you want to be scary?" That one hit deeper than he expected. He thought about moving in the dark, about Tyler's throat under his thumb, about the old muscle memory whispering, "More, finish it." "No," he said honestly. "I wanted to be just your dad, the guy who makes pancakes and messes up your braids." She smiled faintly. "You do mess them up." But he went on carefully. "Sometimes, when someone is trying to hurt people you love, you have to show them you're not gonna let that happen. That can look scary, even to you." She digested that, swinging her feet. "Are you mad at them?" she asked. "I'm mad they scared you," he said. "I'm mad they thought it was okay to come to our house at night." "You told them not to." "I did." "Did they listen?" He thought about Tyler's knees buckling, about Riley's crowbar hitting the dirt. "Yeah," he said quietly, "they listened." She nodded like that made sense in some profound 8-year-old way. Then she perked up, eyes bright again. "Can we have hot cocoa tonight?" she asked. "With the big marshmallows." "Yeah," he said, "we can do that." At the school drop-off lane, she leaned toward him before getting out. "You can be scary to bad guys," she whispered, "but to me you have to scent." "I squishy." He laughed. "I'll do my best." She jumped out, waved with both hands, then ran toward the entrance, her unicorn hoodie bouncing. He watched until the building swallowed her up, the normalcy of it almost surreal after the previous night. On his way back through town, he passed the small brick building that housed the county courthouse. A cluster of reporters didn't wait outside. This wasn't that kind of place, not that kind of story. Just a flag, some steps, a woman in a blazer carrying too many files. He parked anyway. Inside, the air smelled like old paper and floor cleaner. He found the DA's office easily. Small town, simple layout. Caroline Ives, the district attorney, was mid-30s, hair up, eyes sharp behind square glasses. She shook his hand with a grip that meant business. "Mr. Turner," she said, "Sheriff Haskins gave me a heads up. First of all, I'm sorry this happened to you and your daughter. Second, I'm glad you're both okay. Third, I want that kid nailed to the wall." Eli sat across from her. "That's direct." She leaned forward. "I have zero patience for men who intimidate families. Zero. From where I stand, this wasn't a prank or some boys being boys nonsense. This was planned harassment that turned into an attempted home invasion. If I had my way, he'd see the inside of a cell for a good long time." "Then why am I here?" Eli asked. "Because," she said, flipping open a file, "judges listen to victims, juries listen to victims, and plea deals become possible or impossible based heavily on how the victim feels about justice versus closure." "Closure," he echoed. She nodded. "We can go hard. We can go public. We can drag your daughter's name into records, cross-exams, maybe even, though I'd fight it, witness questions. Or—" She tapped a paper. "We can hammer out something that hits him where it hurts without dragging you both through hell." "Like what Sheriff Haskins mentioned," Eli said. "Probation, counseling, community service." "Not just that," she said. "No guns, no alcohol, curfew, mandatory apology to you, your daughter, through my office, not in person, and to the waitress he harassed. A written statement entered into record where he admits wrongdoing and your innocence. And yes, a long stretch of working for vets who don't give a damn who his daddy is." Eli studied her. "You think that'll change him?" She shrugged, honest. "I don't know. Sometimes consequences make kids bitter. Sometimes they make them better. But I do know a trial will make you miserable and your daughter confused and scared. And I know you've already had enough of that in your life." He thought of Cal's voice. "We're dangerous because we know when not to be." "I don't want to see him ruin his whole life over one stupid, selfish spiral," Eli admitted quietly. "But I don't want him near us ever again." "Restraining order," she said immediately. Easy, we can bundle that in. He exhaled. The room suddenly felt big and small all at once. Okay, he said finally. We take the deal, all of it. The stricter the better, but no trial, no dragging my kid into this. Caroline nodded, something like respect in her eyes. You're a bigger man than he'd be in your shoes. He gave a ghost of a smile. He has no idea what shoes I've worn. As he stood to leave, she glanced at the tattoo on his forearm. Sheriff mentioned you served, she said. For what it's worth, thank you, and I'm sorry you had to face more danger here at home. He inclined his head. Danger's different now, he said. Feels smaller, but it hits harder. She understood more than he expected. Yeah, I imagine it does. Outside, the sky was higher and bluer than before, like the day had opened up a bit. On his way back to the truck, he heard a voice call his name. Turner. He turned. Walt Jenkins shuffled toward him from the sidewalk, one hand holding his hat, the other twitching just enough to suggest old injuries or older ghosts. Walt, Eli greeted. You talked to the DA? Walt asked. Yeah, Eli said. She's working a plea deal. Walt let out a breath. Good. That kid needs a hard lesson, not a lifelong sentence, even if part of me wouldn't cry over the latter. Eli gave a faint, wry smile. Walt looked at him for a moment. Heard what you did, he said. Heard you could have, really hurt them. I could have, Eli acknowledged. But you didn't. No. Walt swallowed. We got a vet group meets on Thursdays, he said abruptly. Back room at the church, just coffee, some lousy cookies, and a bunch of old war stories that none of us want but all of us tell anyway. He rolled the brim of his cap between his fingers. You should come sometime. Eli hesitated instinctively. Groups, stories, sitting in folding chairs while people dug up things he'd poured concrete over in his mind. That wasn't his idea of a good time. But then he thought about last night. How close he'd come. How quickly the old him had risen. Maybe sitting in a room with people who understood the shadows wasn't the worst idea. Yeah, he said, maybe I will. Walt nodded like that small agreement meant more than it sounded. All right then, Thursday, 6, we'll leave a chair open. That night, Eli made hot cocoa just like he'd promised. He dropped in exactly 3 marshmallows because Maddie said, too many marshmallows is like too many stickers. It's not special anymore. They sat on the living room floor, legs crossed, mugs warm in their hands, a stupid baking show playing on TV. Daddy, Maddie said between sips. Yeah, Bug. Are the bad guys in trouble now? He thought about legal codes, plea deals, restraining orders, and men in suits arguing over charge severity. None of that mattered to her. Yeah, he said, they're in trouble. Good, she murmured, and for the first time since the diner, there was no tremor in her voice. She slurped a marshmallow, then frowned thoughtfully. Do you think they're scared now? A little, probably. Do you think they're sorry? He considered that carefully. I think maybe they're starting to be, he said, and I hope they get more sorry every day until they understand how wrong they were. She nodded. When I'm bad, you make me say sorry. Yeah, he smiled. Sorry is important. Do they have dads? One of them does, he said. He's yelling at a lot of people today, I bet. She paused. Is he a good dad? Eli stared at the swirling cocoa in his mug. I think he might be a dad who doesn't know yet how to be good, he said. But maybe he can learn too. She leaned against his arm. Maybe you can teach him, she said simply. That idea landed somewhere deep in him, where old leadership instincts slept. Not so much about Tyler's dad, but about boys like Tyler, angry, aimless, pointing their rage in the wrong directions because nobody ever showed them how to carry it. He looked at his tattoo, at his daughter, at the quiet living room. Maybe I can teach someone, he thought. Maybe these scars weren't just for surviving. 2 weeks later, on a Thursday evening, Eli walked into the church basement. The vet group sat around a scratched, folding table, paper cups of coffee, a tray of supermarket cookies, a whiteboard nobody used. Walt lifted his hand in a tired salute when Eli stepped in. "Look who decided to show," Walt said. "Gentlemen, this is Eli. He's one of us. That's all I'll say unless he wants to add more." Eli nodded at the circle. Men and women of different ages, different races, same haunted look in their eyes like they'd all watched the same terrible movie and couldn't turn it off. He sat down. They talked about VA paperwork, about restless sleep, about the way fireworks didn't sound like freedom anymore. They talked about kids and grandkids and how you hold your tongue when someone says something ignorant about over there. Nobody asked Eli to share, but halfway through he did anyway. "Got into it with a local kid a couple weeks back," he said. "He picked a fight, then he brought it to my house. My daughter was asleep in the next room. I almost turned into someone I thought I'd buried." They listened, heads nodding. One older woman murmured, "Those are the worst nights, when the past and the present get too close to each other." "Yeah," Eli said. "Yeah, they are." After the meeting, as he was heading out, Walt caught up with him. "Briggs' kid started at the outreach center this week," Walt said. "Saw him hauling lumber with his daddy's truck logo on it and no one there giving a damn what it said." Eli raised a brow. "How's he doing?" "Like a kid who got scared straight," Walt said. "Keeps his head down, works hard, doesn't talk much." "That last part sounds familiar," Eli noted. Walt smirked. "Maybe you two have more in common than you want to admit." Eli shook his head. "He doesn't know I'm involved in that deal." "Not a clue," Walt said. "As far as he knows, the world just decided to stomp on his neck." They walked out into the cool night air. "You ever going to talk to him?" Walt asked. Eli stared up at the stars for a moment. "Maybe," he said, "when I'm sure I won't choke him." Walt chuckled. "Fair." Another 2 weeks passed. Halloween decorations went up around town, plastic skeletons on porches, fake cobwebs draped over hedges, carved pumpkins glowing at dusk. Maddie decided she wanted to be a Delta Force unicorn princess, which somehow involved a sparkly horn and a toy tactical vest. Eli raised an eyebrow when she modeled it. "I don't think those units usually wear glitter," he said. "They should," she replied. "It would confuse the bad guys." He couldn't argue with that logic. One Saturday afternoon, the Veterans Outreach Center held a small volunteer day. Families came to plant shrubs and paint fences. Kids ran around with brushes doing more damage than good. Eli brought Maddie along to help repaint a ramp for an older vet in a wheelchair. He didn't know Tyler would be there. But he was. Down at the end of the lot, hauling bags of cement from a pallet to a mixing area, sweating under the weight. No hoodie, no mask, just a t-shirt, jeans, and an expression carved from shame and effort. Eli saw him before Tyler saw him. When their eyes finally met, Tyler froze. The bag of cement slipped from his grip, puffing dust around his boots. He stared first at Eli, then at Maddie, who dipped a paintbrush into a tray and completely missed, splattering her sneakers. "Daddy, I got it on my shoe," she complained. "It's okay," Eli said, eyes still on Tyler. "Just a shoe." Tyler looked away quickly, shoulders hunching, as if trying to fold himself into the ground. For a while, they just worked in separate corners of the same space. Maddie painted more of her vest than the ramp. Eli fixed her lines. Tyler carried heavy things back and forth, muscles straining, jaw clenched. Finally, during a water break, the outreach supervisor, a cheerful woman named Denise, called out, "Tyler, give Turner a hand over there with the lumber, would ya?" Tyler stiffened. So did Eli. But neither refused. Tyler walked over, every step careful, like approaching a wild animal. "Hey," he mumbled. I can grab the other end." Eli nodded once, not speaking yet. They lifted a stack of boards together, carried them to the side of the ramp. When they set them down, Tyler stepped back, hands flexing nervously. "Look," he said, staring at the ground. "I know I'm not supposed to talk to you, though the court thing, but I just..." He swallowed hard. "I'm sorry," he blurted. About the diner, about your kid, about your house. He caught himself glancing at Maddie nearby. A real jerk. Eli watched him, measuring the tone, the body language, the tremor. It wasn't the slick, performative apology of someone trying to dodge consequences. It sounded like it hurt to say. "Okay," Eli said quietly. "I hear you." Tyler nodded, still staring at the dirt. "Nothing I say fixes it, I know that. I think about it every night, about being on your porch and not walking away when we could have, about you letting me live when you didn't have to." His voice cracked on the last words. Maddie wandered over with 2 uneven paint strokes down her cheeks like war paint. "Daddy, I made myself a camo face," she announced. He smiled faintly. "Yeah, I see that." She looked between him and Tyler. "Is that the mean man?" she asked plainly. Tyler flinched like she'd hit him. Eli crouched to her level. "He did a very bad thing," he said, "but he's working hard to make it right now. That's why he's here." She studied Tyler for a long moment, then frowned. "Are you sorry?" "Yes," Tyler said immediately, "more than anything." She thought about that, then shrugged in a way only kids can. "Okay," she said, "but you can't be mean ever again, especially not in diners. Diner ladies are nice." Tyler's throat worked. "I won't," he said, "I promise." She gave him a firm nod, then skipped away, satisfied. Eli stood again. The wind carried the smell of sawdust and paint, and distant grilled hot dogs. "You ever think about the army?" Eli asked suddenly. Tyler blinked, thrown. "What?" "Service," Eli said. "Structure, learning what it means to have your strength used for something other than your ego." Tyler snorted weakly. "I don't think they'd want me." "You'd be surprised who they want when you come in honest," Eli said. "You've got a lot of anger. That can get you killed. Or it can make you a damn good protector if you learn what to do with it." Tyler looked at him, something like hope and fear struggling in his expression. "You offering to, what, be my recruiter?" he asked. Eli shook his head. "I'm offering to not waste what last night cost us," he said. "You scared my daughter. You woke up parts of me I'd rather keep asleep. That has to mean something other than just a line in your record." Silence. Then, "What were you?" Tyler whispered. "Really?" Eli looked at the tattoo on his forearm. He thought about midnight landings and classified missions, about lost friends and folded flags, about the weight of being called legend in rooms where men rarely used words like that. "Someone who did his job," he answered simply. "Someone who got good at violence so other people didn't have to." Tyler nodded slowly. I don't want to be good at hurting people," he said. "Not anymore." "Then stop," Eli said. "Start here, carry stuff, build ramps, listen." Tyler glanced toward the outreach center, where other vets laughed and argued and told stories. "Okay," he said. I'll try." "That's all anyone asked of me when I started," Eli said. "Try every day, even when you don't feel like you deserve the chance." A shout went up from across the lot. Someone needed more lumber. Denise waved at them. "Hey, muscles, less chatting, more hauling." Eli picked up one and of a board. Tyler grabbed the other. They lifted together. As they worked, Eli felt something loosen inside him. Some old knot stretching, not gone, but not choking him either. He wasn't just a man with a mark that scared people. He was a father, a neighbor, a vet among other vets. And maybe, slowly, carefully, he was becoming something else too. A man who could take all the darkness he'd carried and use it to build instead of break. That night back at home, Maddie climbed into his lap on the porch swing, wrapping a blanket around both of them. "Are the bad guys gone now?" she asked, voice drowsy. "Yeah," he said softly, looking up at the wide, peaceful sky. "They're gone." "Are you gonna stop being scary now?" she mumbled. He thought about Tyler carrying boards beside him, sweat stinging his eyes, pride chipped away, humility growing in its place. "I think," Eli said, kissing the top of her head, "I'm gonna start being something better." She smiled against his chest. You're already the best. The desert wind moved gently across the yard, dry grass whispering like a long exhale of relief. Far away in bars and diners and pickup trucks, the story would spread. How some punk kid had slapped a quiet single dad in a roadside diner. And then found out that little tattoo on the man's arm marked a Delta Force legend. But the part the whispers would never quite capture, the part that mattered most, was not the threat or the fear or the night on the porch. It was this. A man who had spent his life being a weapon chose, when it mattered most, to be a shield instead. For his daughter, for his town, and maybe, just maybe, even for the foolish bully who had no idea who he'd hit until it was almost too late.